Trigger on! Welcome, dear all, to the Duckface Diaries. I'm Hovin with an H, and for this month, we're doing something a little different. See, since Wensleydale has had a personal setback and needs to take a month off, we're putting the read-through on hold. After all, if Ashihara's not rushing to finish the series, and rightfully so, why should we? Hopefully it'll be back soon, but in the interim, we thought, why not take another delve into the border briefing file? Yes, this month we'll be looking at the B-rank entries and going through what bits of trivia leap out to us. And with me today, I have a regular guest on the channel. Returning from our Volume 11 recap, it's Grail. How are you doing, pal?
Doing good, aside the fact that it's slippery as fuck outside because we had all the snow, and now it's melted, so we have the ice left under it and a ton of water from the snow that melted. So aside that, real good. That sucks though.
Slush and ice, that's quite the combo.
Not even slush, just ice and water.
Wow. I didn't even know that was possible. Huh.
You have not lived in a country that can. And I commute to work by bicycle, so yeah, that's fun.
Geez, that safe travels. No, yeah, I've been alright. I'm about halfway through reading Rave Master, which has been a very interesting experience. I both kind of understand why people who like Rave were mad at Fairy Tail now, but I also think it has a lot of problems compared to Fairy Tail. It feels very stitched together and kind of half-formed as a series, but it is pretty cool when it really hits its stride.
I have read some parts of it, I don't think I ever finished it, and I'd say it was good for first effort. I mean, that would have set the building blocks for most authors from which they go to greater heights. So Hero, that just was his peak.
See, for me it's like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. He definitely evolves as a mangaka, but then he also kind of drops certain strengths of the series as well. Like, Fairy Tail and Eden Zero feel like they have a much more cohesive world than Rave, and he's better at depicting the characters having a sense of place in the environments, but then he's really good in Rave at having fights that have a good amount of, like, push and pull. Like, the literal whole thrust of the series is that Haru is, like, learning to get all the techniques, so by the nature of it, he kind of has to be on the ropes a lot of the time. I don't know, for me it's different pros and cons, but can't let this tangent go on for too long, since this is supposed to be a World Trigger podcast. See, this is what happens when Wensleydale gives me the reins. You get, like, minutes-long rave side tangents. They'll also be regularly annoyed at listening to obvious things that I forgot. But without further ado, I think we'd better just get right into the trivia sections. So, let's do it.
Let's go.
Alright, so starting off, we have the entry on Ninomiya Squad.
Yeah, I have to just mention that it says Ninomiya dislikes the cosplay look of the uniform, so he had everyone wear suits and ties. Like, dude, either you are full-on cosplaying hypocrite, or you're a hipster. You know,
Yep.
I'm actually not sure Ninomiya is not a hipster. Like, I totally believe it if Ashihara came out and said, yeah, he's a hipster.
Certainly very, very revealing that, like, he's like, oh no, I don't want that silly cosplay look. This is what's going to look dignified. It goes into how long range is their weak point, and then mid is their highest, and I like that the loss of Hatahara really shows on their stats, when they were originally much more of an all-rounder.
That does make you wonder, like, where do they cut off what is long range? Because as, like, the best shooter, I would imagine Ninomiya has some ability to go for long range combat. Or is it just, like, only sniper length is long range?
I think it's very clear-cut in that it's just to do with the type of weapons that they have on hand, and I guess proficiency with those weapons.
Yeah, on that note, it's clear that, yeah, they would have no long range because they have no sniper.
Yeah, snipers count as long range, gunners count as mid-range, and then close is, like, bladed weapons.
Yeah, so if it's just a weapon type, then, yeah, I can totally see that.
Okay, so do you have anything to say on, like, Ninomiya's individual entry as well?
Well, it is interesting that he has, like, one of the highest stat totals, which I guess makes sense considering he's the first shooter of them all. And I do like that with Tachikawa he has regards as rival ?
He's not quite sure.
I'm not sure if Ashihara is quite sure what their relationship exactly is.
I mean, the one that I have to shout out on that is relation to Azama. Discipline. Nice. His biggest strength is Treon and then attack, and that makes a lot of sense. One of his big things is that he is just a massive well of Treon, kind of like Chika, in that he is kind of both equally a rival force to Chika and Osamu, in that he is a tactical shooter and he also has a lot of Treon.
Yeah, though I do wonder what special tactics exactly means when he only has a 2 in that.
The special tactics, Wensleydale and I tried to work out what this meant, and we just couldn't wrap our head around it. It's quite confusing. I think my last note I have on him is that him throwing away his pride and asking that Izumi train him, it's an interesting contrast to a lot of kind of smug rival characters of his ilk. It shows that he's not prideful to a fault. He underestimates Tamakoma, but that's about the extent of it.
Well, I'd say that back then, he had a reason to underestimate Tamakoma, because they only had Yuma who could really score any points.
Fair enough.
Little spoiler, even in their later encounter, he did think like, alright, we have to at least consider them as a threat, even if he still clearly thinks that he is above them and will win.
Then we got Inukai.
I will just say that I was not expecting him to be the youngest member of this team. Like, he looks... Oh wait, you were going Inukai first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're surprised that Tsuji is the youngest then?
Yeah, I mean, he does look older than Inukai to me.
Yeah, he's like kind of deceptively immature in a lot of regards.
And Tsuji too looks really mature, like, I'd expect him to be around Ninomiya's age.
I do also find it very amusing. You've got Ninomiya there as this serious business captain in contrast to two fairly jolly, easygoing teammates who like planes and dinosaurs. As they go to favourite things. It ties in with kind of their playful nature of when they were pushing around Yonia, when he had that slippy goop from that Galapola fight. It seems that Tsuji is very much the designated weakest of the bunch. He's an attacker without an exceptional amount of attack, whereas Inukai is kind of the designated all-rounder support. The defense support on Tsuji being high, I think it seems to indicate that his forte is spotting for other squad members, rather than being that much of a fighting force on his own right.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only one who's full melee, and they probably would want to have some defense for Ninomiya, who is their biggest asset. Like, if Ninomiya goes down, their team just loses, like, over half their efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. Last of all, we have the operator, Aki Hiyami. There wasn't much on her. It kind of comments on her having more of a bird's eye view of the battle and not showing happiness when stuff with her team goes well. It kind of very much contrasts a lot of other squads where in Ninomiya Squad success is expected and it's not rewarded per se.
Though I will mention that I find it a little odd that Tsuji only has like 3 free trigger slots. Does he just not choose to like try and be efficient with his Tryon or something?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You get some people in these files that just fill up as many slots as they can, and some that are just like, okay, I just want to focus on this trigger because this is what I'm confident with.
I mean, we do know that triggers take some portion of your Tryon, so if you only have fewer of them, then you have more optimal set. And I'm also not sure why Tsuji's range is only 2 if he has a Senku with him. I mean, doesn't that give you some range? Because most Kogetsu only users are, whether they have Senku or not.
Again, I think perhaps the idea of range here is just thought in terms of literally the weapon classification rather than what distance damage it can actually do, because it really does seem to come across like that.
Yeah, that's just kind of odd to me, because I know there's few places where people might only use a short-range weapon, but they have means of using it at a longer range.
We then come to, speaking of range, to Hatahara's secret data file, which I didn't actually notice this in the first episode, how some of the data is listed as secret data, perhaps only shared among border higher-ups. It's going to become a bit of a recurring thing that I'm going to nitpick the shit out of, like, what gets to be secret data and what doesn't.
It makes sense with Hatahara, considering why she might be a secret.
Oh, yeah.
Though, of course, given that she couldn't shoot people, her attack is only 1. I bet that would probably be 8 to 10 range if she could shoot people.
And it kind of goes to show how much leeway Chika could get with the border higher-ups if she was actually able to shoot people, which, as where we are in the read-through right now, she is not. Next up we got the Kaguya Squad overview. They seem to be like all-rounders with melee focus, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, both Emma and Kitazoe can score points. Emma maybe more so I think their long would be a bit higher than their mid. But still, neither of them are useless without Kageura around.
The wording of Kageura's side effect is quite funny. The emotion, reception, constitution. It's a lot of words with a similar ending there. I believe it's not called that in the Viz translation.
I will also note that with their other tactics, the defense formation, where they just make Emma and Kitazoe decoys while Kageura takes on one of the enemies, I'm just not sure how well that would work. How effective is it usually to just run away for someone like Emma and Kitazoe? I imagine any close quarters attackers could just chase him down before Kageura gets to take their target down. Or at most, like, Kageura takes one, enemy takes two.
I mean, Kitazoe, in the fights we've seen in him, definitely seems to be very used to just getting out of dodge. It just seems to be a thing that we see him doing a lot. I think that tactic in particular does make a nice contrast to Ninomiya Squad, where Tsuji and Inukai are very focused on spotting for each other. Yeah, it goes to show that different squads have different approaches with how they support their ace.
And given the kind of people they have, it makes sense that their strategies are all about offense. No need to defend, just try to keep the enemy off their toes so Kageura can go in for the kill.
Speaking of, shall we go into some stuff about Kageura?
Yeah, let's. Like the fact that he has a 12 in attack.
Absolute beast.
Yeah, like, that's on Ninomiya's level.
It's interesting, because his parameter graph is one where at a glance at the shape, I think, oh, it's not that great. But then I actually look at the stats and the stat total, and it's sort of deceptive.
Yeah, like, he might not be at high level, but he's optimized his build, if I would put it in RPG terms.
This also implies that the side effect is received specifically by his skin. Maybe the sensation of people's emotions is like touch or something, which is an interesting one.
Well, he did say it feels like a sting in you. I assume it's like poking a needle into your skin. Well, at least when someone has negative perception of him.
One thing I find a bit confusing, I think this might be an error in the border briefing file, is that the violent incident cited as how he got demoted to B rank is his introduction scene. Like, there's an arrow to it. Like, yeah, it's in question. The acts of hostility other than practice battles are in violation of the rules. And, like, I don't think that was it. I think that was just an example of the kinds of incidents that do it. Like, he was already demoted when we met him there. It says, the violent incident in question.
I guess it's referring to the part on the right side that says, Kageura has rough side with violent incidents that revokes his points. And then it says, the violent incident in question.
Oh, okay.
Like, here it doesn't refer to specifically him being an A rank, so...
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
Because that was mentioned only on the last page.
He is also that case similar to Tsuji that we mentioned earlier, that he has very few triggers, but he's just really focuses on being proficient with the Scorpion, basically.
Yeah. I'm also tad surprised to see that he considers both Murakami and Arafunay to be friends in his chart, because this just seems like the kind of guy who does not have friends.
Perhaps I could see Murakami and Arafune being the types that are able to forge respect with him. I do find it amusing that Prey is what he considers humor.
Yeah, and bad company. I'm gonna guess he is bad company to Kitazoe.
It's often confusing when you see the pointing thing, whether it's how that person thinks of them or vice versa. There's one coming up with, I think, Nasu Squad, where it threw me off a bit. There's also Yuzuru Emma. I like how he takes more from Toma than he'll admit. Like, he never states that he is his tutor out of loyalty to Hatahara, but he will join around with his playing about on the practice grounds.
Yeah, and that's seriously impressive that he can actually paint a perfectly symmetrical star. Like, I would probably struggle to do that with a pen.
He's very much a skill monkey type of sniper. I'm surprised his defense support stat isn't higher, given how much of that is highlighted here. Maybe it's just a semantic thing. Again, I feel like there are ways that we interpret the stats that aren't really being intended.
Then again, I don't see how much defensive he is. Like, to me, he seems like the specialist who just does sniping really, really good and doesn't have too much else going on. Also, there's the point that, yeah, he's into Chica.
Well, duh. We've got Kitazo, which confirms that the bad company thing is a mutual thing. Are they going to start as rapping duo or something?
I could actually see, like, Kageura being a rapper. I mean, at least looks and personality-wise.
Yeah, just get, like, some chains on him. Get a beat going. I like how he and Ima both work to manipulate a field, while Kageura is the straightforward attacker. It's kind of like an inverse of Tamakoma 2's initial layout, where Chika and Yuma are the real kind of points getters, and Osamu is basically just supporting them.
Well, even Chika can't get points currently because, you know, can't shoot anyone.
Yeah, there is that, but she is kind of so instrumental.
Like, I'd say this is like Mikumo Squad Light, because Kitazoe and Emma are more focused on getting points for Kageura, but they actually can get points on their own.
There's also Nirei, who is very much the opposite of Kageura, where the stat block shape looks impressive, but doesn't actually have that big of a total.
Yeah, I'd say most operators don't seem to have a really high total.
They're all pretty similar, but just leaning towards different areas.
Ninomiya Squad even only had like a 37 total on their operator.
I like that she's the role of the lazy goof who is low-key the glue of the team. It's kind of interesting, that idea of like this... Yeah. I believe they've worded it the shadow leader who brings everyone together.
Well, I mean, they kind of need one if Kaguya is their leader, because he does not bring anyone together.
There's also the little side section on the Nire zone, how basically the operating room, there's just a whole area of it that is just her domain.
Yeah.
She's always taking over the futon.
Like it says, the Kotatsu is an impregnable fortress. Fun fact, they actually tried to use that to escort the staff into during the invasion, but she did not allow entry to any of them, so that plan failed.
Coming up, we have a lightning round of squads where we know much more about them now, so these entries are sort of not the most helpful. I don't know if you have anything to say on Yokoma or Yuba Squad.
Well, not based on what we can say here, because all we got is triggers they use and their position. Like, no age, no birthday, height, blood type, no fun facts, not even a picture.
No, I mean, for some context, this came out after Volume 14, so this would have been right after Chika started learning to use the lead bullets, and Osamu was being told about the spider, and we were just gearing up for Galapola, so these wouldn't have appeared yet.
So that was just before the Katori Squad fight.
Yes, which we have covered in the read-through.
But then again, I mean, do we think there would be anyone who would be memorable within these squads? Doesn't look like anything that would be too insane.
Definitely not any favourite characters of mine. So for the Yokoma Squad, the one note I have is that, like, Yokoma is kind of similar to Kaguya in that he has one trick trigger-wise, but uses it really, really well. With Yuba Squad, the Viper and Asteroids as handguns must have raised a lot of questions back when this dropped, because this would have been the first info we'd gotten about Yuba Squad before they actually appeared in the story. They've also got no melee focus and are much more preoccupied with the mid and far range.
Well, Yukari does seem to have some melee with, well, just a Kogetsu. Sorry, I mixed up the names.
As far as OG Squad goes, it's a very melee-focused unit. It's sort of a less balanced equivalent to Kaguya, I'd say. And we later learn that OG being such a schemer is where the squad really shines. They're less notable for their trigger layout than they are for kind of the personality that leads them. Do you have anything to say on the secret data for the virtual combat mode?
Not really. This all seems like the stuff that they flat out said during both the invasion and the initial use during the entry exams.
Pretty much. It goes into the details on the training rooms. It basically just reiterates how high-tech Borders facilities are, that they can not only digitally recreate the flow of Trion, but can even use these rooms to identify foreign black triggers and, like, project info into the agent's eyes. So yeah, pretty cool. We move on to Suzunari 1, who are close-range specialists, despite having a sniper.
Yeah, well, it's a Kaguya Squad thing, where their close-range specialist is the guy who's the most apt at getting points.
I like how much it emphasises how crucial Kuruma is as a captain. His performance is very strong, but quite understated. Very much the early stages of Tamakoma approach, of their strategies being built around patching over their weaknesses.
I even have my notes written that these two are like Tamakoma Squad light. They have similar setting, and the ace is the attacker.
I will say, for Karuma's entry himself, I am very disappointed that the entry features nothing on his superior acting skills. But the entry does go into his seeking out Arafunay to help Murakami in a flashback, which... Why does Border have this info? This seems like very personal stuff.
I'm gonna guess the rumors got passed around.
For Murakami, there's a lot of emphasis on his wholehearted dedication to self-discipline. Nice. I would have thought that skill would trump all for him, but I guess the focus on attack and defense support makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, his skill is still a 9, which is very respectable.
Yeah. And then Taiichi is the easy weak link of the group, which figures, and I like that he's mildly scared of Yuka in the relationship chart. She has no time for his nonsense.
Just looking at her, you would be a little scared. Also, I'm a bit surprised that Sajay is older than I thought. Like, he's 20. I thought he would be somewhere like 17, 18 range.
I can sort of see it. Again, this is just the World Trigger thing of people in their early 20s are on the older side for the series cast.
I mean, at least they have some kind of explanation for why.
The only thing I really have to say on Yuka Kon is that it's a bit of an Ashihara Boomer moment. The whole profile, she's very trad waifu. I do like her liking calligraphy. That's kind of a nice touch that plays into the theme in a creative way. And I also like in Suzunari 1's off time little section, it's like a big uproar with the instant noodles in hands. Very important data for board with this. It's very crucial stuff for any agent to know.
It shows that Taichi is kind of a screw-up, so don't put him in anything important. Taichi so far seems to be the lowest points of anyone in there overall. I don't think anyone else so far has gone below 40. Well, he's at 38. Not counting operators, of course.
Yeah, the operators are the outlier there. And then we move on to Azama Squad.
I just have to say something that's really bugging me. Azuma is the oldest soldier in these squads that we know of. And even he is a postgraduate student. Is there anyone working for Border who is not a student? No one here has a part-time job or just some work. Why are they all students despite their age?
I mean, I guess there's Fuyushima. Is he older? Or is he about the same age? Okay, yeah, Fuyushima is older by 4 years. I don't know if it's meant to imply that... I know the reason given in volumes of why there are so many young Border agents is because, generally speaking, the Trion gland doesn't grow much after your early 20s, but still a bit weird that there aren't that many. I guess it's just... The thing is, Azuma was the first sniper. He's one of the founding members. So I guess his generation would have just been where it all started, so there's not a lot of precedent.
I'm not bothered by the age, just that all of them chose to be students even to this age.
I don't know. From Azuma, I definitely get the sense that he's a very studious type, so that he'd stick in education for a while. So for Azama Squad as a whole, it's very much a long-range focus with a strong melee backup, and the thing that interested me the most here is, on snowy stages, white camos are used too, like in their match with Ninomiya, Kaguya, and Tamakoma. This might be the only team I know that changed uniform, if only in colour, depending on the stage. I'm not sure anyone else has done that.
As far as I can remember, no one has. Though, of course, it would be harder for most stages because, well, you won't know what the enemy has. It only works if you are the one choosing. And I guess you can know urban camouflage, but I guess that also carries the risk of you might more easily hurt your teammates when you don't see them as easily.
I feel like the way that Azuma one-ups Hatahara and Toma is definitely his use of camo. How he has stuff like the dummy trigger.
Yes, that's why he's at Special Tactics 5, which is usually the lowest stat that most people have.
And overall, his stats were just... It was another one of those, like, sweet lord. That's a lot. Even compared to Composed Beefcakes. Definitely goes to show that he is one of the most accomplished agents.
He might not be the most skilled in sniping, but I would still say he is the best sniper Border has. Because you do remember that during the invasion arc, he actually took charge of a few other squads to try and take down Ranbanine.
Yeah.
I like that Korai says he tries to decide their map based on what would be interesting. Fitting, given that he has the lowest stat total in the team, and I think lowest we've seen so far. This little screw up.
This got me thinking, actually, because it definitely emphasizes that he's more of a risk taker. And then, meanwhile, you've got Okudera, who's more accomplished stats-wise, but more reserved. I kind of get the sense that he's like the Sasuke to Kourai's Naruto. I kind of like the idea that the dynamic between them is that Okudera is the more carefully reliable, but Kourai is both learning from him and also moving him out of his comfort zone with the risks that he takes.
I do wonder, Azuma is the kind of guy who wants to tutor other people, so did he choose these two because they were weak, or did he just happen upon two weaklings?
I'm sure he probably saw some potential in them. There is kind of an understanding, obviously, with C-rankers, that they're not going to start out super amazing. So he probably saw potential in them and just wants to train them up from a very early stage.
Not sure what the potential he saw in Korai.
Then there's Makko Hitomi, who's a very solid all-rounder of an operator. It's another case for me of the distribution shape making her stats look a bit bigger than they actually are. And also, she just comes off as kind of gothy with her hair and her like of horror movies.
I also do like that they note that she has no chill for the bad strategies that Korai and sometimes Okudera come up with, unlike Azuma. Azuma can be pretty chill about it and just take it as it comes and guide them. She just says, fucking idiots.
She's the bad cop to Azuma's good cop. And I like that in her off time that Hitomi weirds out all of these visitors that just want to see Azuma with her horror merch.
Yeah, and I have to say, it points out that doll, and is that a Monokuma wearing a frog costume?
I was not sure what to make of that. I thought those two things on the sides were like eyes or something. It has a very Monokuma-esque quality to it.
Yeah, so there's also a brief on the rank wars, which basically just reiterates the rules. I do kind of find it interesting that only by being in a squad that's A rank can you be A rank, which makes sense because even someone like number 4 attacker Murakami is only still considered B rank.
I gotta say though, the wording of the translation, I don't want to harp on it too much, but B rank rank wars, it's a bit unwieldy of how to put it. So there are a few things that leapt out to me. This might just have been things I forgot from the volumes. The time limit being tied to the size of a stage only is interesting. I'd have thought that the number of participants would be a factor as well, although it could also be argued that more participants could result in more agents being dispatched quickly. Obviously, generally, matches with more people in the series last longer chapters-wise, but that could just be nebulous manga time that doesn't really correlate with the actual length of events going on.
It is higher chance that people run into each other when there are more people around.
And then Out of Bounds being treated as a voluntary bailout isn't something I'd really considered. I guess because it only really came up in the Nasu and Murakami match, where the emphasis for Tamakoma there was taking down as many enemies as possible rather than survival.
I suppose this means that whether you go out of bounds voluntarily or involuntarily, like via the overflowing river, that doesn't make a difference.
So then we move on to Tamakoma 2. I'm sure you have a few things to say about this, Sponge.
Actually, surprisingly little, considering most of this stuff is stuff that we've just gone through in the series proper. Though I will say right away that Osamu likes bridges.
Yep.
2 notes. First, nerd! Secondly, the fight against Nasu Squad must have been hell for him when he had to take out a precious bridge.
No, Chica, just do it. Just get it over with. Just rip the band-aid off.
Also, I think he has the most, relation charts so far, as well as the lowest stat total so far. Even below most operators.
Much like the main series, it does not shy away from his shortcomings as a combatant whatsoever. This is also one of the squads I'd be most curious to see an updated general chart of their group squad parameters. I feel like long range would be beefed up quite a bit, and mid-range maybe a little.
How much spoiler are we allowed to say here?
I think as long as you preface with spoiler warning, it's fine.
Well, I would also, spoiler warning, say that their close range would have gotten quite a bit higher.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. I hadn't thought of that. There's more emphasis on kind of his tactical instrument coming along. Good lord, the prose in Osamu's one is so overdramatic. It's like, a pure, righteous man who pulled the trigger of destiny!
A flash of ray gust compensate for the difference in ability with the power of ideas.
The overly sensational first meeting with Kaguyuma.
They're really hard trying to make Osamu cool, which is kind of a tall order.
It's really funny though, because if we were taking this at face value as a Border file, you'd have thought that Border were absolutely championing this guy as a shining beacon of what they want, and not like a scrappy underdog trying to make his way whatsoever within it. It very much goes through a greatest hits of his moments, with the notable absence seeming to be his performance in the Afto invasion, though that was underplayed in terms of public knowledge in Border, so that makes a lot of sense.
Plus, besides the time that he was just Chica Cube delivery service, he didn't really have much of other contribution during that time.
I think his contribution is very much more impressive to us as an audience members than it is to the cold hard bottom line of what Border wants.
Then again, to Border, Chica is kind of a priority asset, so maybe that would have been good for them.
One thing is, why does Border list his break-in in their briefing files? I don't think that's something that you want to be upfront about in your public files about one of your agents. Oh yeah, he broke into us once. We're very proud to have him on.
Yeah, just encourage others to break in if they don't get in at first.
For Yuma, his stats are pretty appropriately on par with that of an A rank. Though, again, like you kind of said, there's not a lot to comment on that isn't very apparent in the main series.
Though, I do want to comment on something, because I was reminded of it once again here, because the body Yuma has right now is of Tryon, just a copy of the body he had at age 11. He does not look 11 in that body. At least compared to some other characters of age 15 or 14 in this series.
It's mostly just that he's short. He's got a very precocious kind of vibe to him otherwise. He looks like he could be the same age as Teruya or something. I guess to tie into what I said earlier, it's interesting how some stuff counts as secret data, but Yuma being a neighbor is plain to see here. I guess it's just the conflicting need of this to be an extensive character data book, and also the commitment to the bit of being Border documents. They do inevitably rub up against each other.
Yeah, I guess they could have just put on that page again one of those hidden information things.
Yeah, just a little box or something. Then, Chica, I knew her Trion level was big.
Yeah, but it's fun to see that out of, on a scale of 1 to 10, hers is 38.
Yeah, just seeing it in comparable numbered stat form compared to everyone else is something else.
She has 8 range, otherwise she has 2 1s, a 2 and a 3, and still she is leagues above even Ninomiya in terms of raw stats.
And even made the Chief of Border's R&D division ooh and ah. It mainly highlights the trust of teammates and dedication to practice as a strength of characters as an agent.
Like I said, it is a lot of what's already covered.
Speaking of, there's a lot of that in the secret data file on Replica, although we do get a new piece of information here. I don't know if you picked up on it.
Which part exactly?
So we get the first indication that Tropoi, which was a part of Replica's self-introduced title, the Tropoi Autonomous Trion Soldier, could well be a neighbour country. This is never outright stated in the series, and this briefing file is the first time they've really directly implied that. We go over to another case of a squad that we know much more about now, so it's a little pointless. I don't know anything about Katori squads.
Well, at least they have a little bit of info. Like, we have their stats, we have some stuff on the uniform, which I admit is really stylish uniform.
Yeah, I think it's up there with Kaguya as one of the stronger ones. I think one thing that looking at the raw stats, and just kind of the individual ones as well, really tells me is that Katori is far cockier over Wakamura than she should be, given that she only outperforms him in attack and mobility. There's not that much of a gulf between them, which I guess it ties into how complacent she is.
Yeah, but then again, the whole thing of specialization, that she's put points into attack and mobility, which together can make her a deadly opponent. I mean, Yuma too has most in those two, though he also has a lot of skill to back it up. And he's one of Border's best attackers right now.
Have you got anything to say on Suwa Squad?
First off, I never actually noticed this, but all of them had those headphones on as part of their uniform. Like, until it was pointed out in their uniform section, I never noticed.
I always just assumed they were little just circly pads on the side of their collar.
I noticed it was on Suwa, but I never noticed the other two also had those.
It's very much a squad that emphasizes the mileage of a strong gut instinct, with, like, Suwa as a big morale booster. I like how much this leans into him being a big people person, and that being how he makes headroom both within his squad and within Border as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, he plays Mahjong with a lot of big hitters, I'd say.
The fact that he just does it with a bunch of senior agents.
I mean,
oh, yeah.
He's pretty close to them in age because he is 21.
Actually, I have an on-the-spot question for you here. So, who do you think wins the most? And then going down in order.
I'd say Azuma wins the most.
Mm.
Then, I'd say Fukushima maybe. I mean, we don't know a lot about him. He's not had that much focus. And then I would say Suwa is the second one. Like, Tachikawa is good at attacking, but I'd guess he gets a little too lackadaisical in the game, so he does not consider more than the next move.
No, he's too much of a himbo. That's pretty much the ranking I'd had. I kind of tossed around the idea of maybe Fukushima could be better than Azuma, because, yeah, we don't know much about him, but he is very based around kind of methodical thinking with his trapping ability.
Then again, so is Azuma, because he's one of the best tacticians they have. But yeah, I would say Azuma based on what we know. If we learn more about Fukushima, then he might take the top spot.
Just as far as Suwa goes, it's very much the mid-range with the emphasis on closing the distance to maximize firepower and spread with his trigger. So yeah, this is one where you could read that as saying, oh, the close range should be more of an emphasis because his tactics do revolve around getting into close range, and his triggers do become more effective the closer that he gets with the tactic that he goes for, but yeah.
In fact, they all have just shotguns. Then again, I guess they could be decently effective at mid-range as well. Just shower bullets to make it harder to dodge. And as I recall, that's how they beat Tsunari 1, Murakami Squad. By just, like, having defense and just forcing the enemy to stay at a mid-range where they're the strongest.
Do you have anything on Tsutsumi and Sasamori?
Not really. Those two are just kind of there.
I think what leapt out to me was the Kako boomer cooking joke on the relations chart is kind of eh, but the detail that he's watching Osamu is interesting. I don't remember what that's in reference to.
It is kind of funny that Sasamori has respect with a question mark on Suwa. He's not quite sure yet if Suwa is worth respecting.
Suwa, respect. Kazuma, respect. I think the other one I had for Tsutsumi is that there's a lot of emphasis on his kind-looking face versus his actions. Somewhat unfairly with his gambling. I don't really see how him liking a gamble doesn't make him kind. It's just a hobby. If he's addicted, that's a problem, but that's not necessarily adverse to that.
And as far as I see, it probably more refers to just gamble in terms of battle strategies, instead of just, like, regular-ass money gambling.
And then we've got Sasamori, who is very much the babby of the squad stats-wise, which makes Suwa's protectiveness of him mentioned before even more endearing to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly like the little brother of this group. And like they said, doesn't care that much about personal victory, like when he skewered himself and Yuma at once.
We also have Rui Asano. I didn't realise she used to be a fashion model prior to Border. I don't remember if that was established in the volumes. Maybe in one of the extras. And then we got the Suwa Squad's off time. The general laid-back nature of the squad is very wholesome. Minor spoilers, I like the idea that Suwa takes after the veterans that he plays Mahjong with. particularly Azama in his role as like a mentor and leader, with how he's trying to be a leader in the current arc. If not necessarily perfectly following their ethos, he is really trying to emulate it. I think that could be nice.
Though, question, it says that she was in show business company until middle school. How long was Border Public for now? I can't remember.
I don't know. Middle school goes up till 15, I think? I don't know. This is a very alien concept to me as a Brit.
Yeah, as well as a Finnish person.
Then we've also got like a secret data thing on the Borders Expedition Force. Which, wow, Tachikawa looked so stoic in his first introduction.
Well, they all looked pretty cool and stoic. Which, one of them at least fulfilled that expectation. 1 out of 3 ain't bad. Actually, it is kind of bad.
Kazuma's the only one that actually follows through on that. The largest ever long-term project is a very apt description of both the build-up to the away mission in-universe and out of canon.
Yeah, Untitled Chapters, like, monthly, fair. The way Ashihara uses monthly chapters, it's actually starting to try my patience, even knowing the pacing of this series.
Oh, I have made peace with it.
I used to make peace with it until the latest set of chapters. You know the one I'm talking about without spoilers.
I'll be interested to see how it reads to me going forward. I feel like I'll probably be more easygoing reading it in bulk. I think, generally speaking, the way I read manga now is that if I'm frustrated with the chapter-to-chapter progression, I just stop reading it chapter to chapter, and then for everything else, I just kind of make a mental allowance of, this isn't the ideal way to experience this, try to have some patience with it. And, you know, there's a limited bandwidth that I can do that with, but Border's kind of one of the... Border. I just called this series Border. No. World Trigger's one of the series where I can make that kind of allowance.
Yeah, I maybe could, but with how slowly chapters come out to begin with, it's harder and harder to just, like, try to read in bulk.
So... yeah, following that, unless you've got anything else to say on the Expedition Force, we could move on to Arafunay Squad. Seeing how their long-range focus in comparison to the others does emphasize their uniqueness among B-rank to me.
Though, I do find it kind of interesting that, despite being an all-sniper team, none of them use any other trigger aside Egret for sniping.
I feel like, out of them, Arafunay feels like a true competent all-rounder. Like, you can see that Reiji is his goal and his stats, though it's nice to see that sort of distribution showcased in someone who isn't ridiculously OP.
And it's also interesting that, despite being the captain, he is the weakest sniper in his group.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. It's like with their uniform, they highlight that they wear the hats to block the sun. The only one who wears the hats to block the sun is the weakest in range. Then you have Hanzaki with his cap on backwards like a goober with 11, and Hikari with no cap with 8.
It is kind of interesting that the youngest one with Hanzaki is actually the best sniper among them. Even in sniping terms, he's even above Azuma.
It's like there's a very even stat distribution across the squad with 52, 51, 51. But yeah, Hanzaki, this one, it highlights his ability to evade Yuma. He's much better on his toes than he might seem.
I would say that while they have good stat totals, which might make them otherwise better, I would assume that this is kind of a niche strategy that has a lot of weak points. Like, when it works, it really works, but usually it just does not work. Kind of like making an off-meta gimmick deck in some online TCG.
I find it interesting that Hikari in his relationship has, like, watching Chika. I vaguely remember him giving some advice to her, but I'm not sure.
I don't, but then again, it's hard to remember, like, side characters in many places, because character design is not the strongest point of Ashihara. Some of the designs just kind of blend in together.
In Hikari's case, he's very much the tech support sniper of the group. Last of all, we've got Kagami. I do find it amusing that the overview, it reads, "Leave research to her, the arty operator," as opposed to the sportsy operator. And it highlights her sculpting and her weird voodoo doll fixation, but she's quite average stats-wise.
Well, most operators seem to be, so...
The off-time very much hits home how stringent and rigorous of a Captain Arafunay is. The implementation of the personal belonging restriction to make the room less messy, and then there's also, he seems to watch combat records a lot, which makes sense given that he has the monumental goal of become another ultimate all-rounder that can train other all-rounders.
Yeah, and, I mean, it makes sense that they had that restriction, because it says it used to be total chaos in the room. Like, alright, we tried free will, it didn't work, you guys abused it, so now you get the hammer.
We've then got the Enedorad report. Do you have anything on the Enedorad report?
Yeah, I didn't know that some translations make it Enedra.
I remember the scans when I first read through it like that, called him Enedra. It's like the NL Eneru thing.
Yeah, it's forever the L and R thing when Japan doesn't differentiate with them.
I think the things of interest raised here are the concept that black triggers debatably preserve life after death.
Well, at least in his case, because he has the trigger horns that were part of Togator's stuff. Well, no, because they did specifically say that the black triggers had burrowed into his brain, which made him to be such an asshole.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mixed blessing. You get to live on past your body's death, but also you're a crazy arsehole, basically.
Well, at least if someone is nice enough to put those horns into something that can support your life. It seems this also confirms that movies are basically bribes to him to get information out of him.
Yep, watching movies with Eric Cartman. It hints that Enedorad is hiding something here.
That was revealed in the series proper where Yuma said he does want revenge, that part is true, but there's something else.
I'm still very much gunning for him getting a new body somewhere in the neighbourhood on the expedition. I think that could be interesting. So next up we have Nasu's squad, which is very balanced, but of course Nasu spearheading mid-range as their forte.
Yeah, they're like Suzunari 1, except replace close with mid.
The wording of this one is like the uniform confines femininity with maneuverability. I may be on one to talk. I'm not a big fan of how leery this volume is at Nasu. It's another one of those things that Ashihara sometimes crowbars in his comment corners, which I feel like runs against the strengths of World Trigger as a series.
I just don't read those, so I live in blissful ignorance.
There's also in her entry, the beautiful Viper wielder and the firm will that she carries in that lean figure. I don't know. One thing that I find very amusing, I believe it's just because of how slapdash the way it's lettered, it's in their formation of leading the opponent around at mid-range with Nasu at the core. It's like the highly mobile Nasu. The word mobile is all stretched out.
That section also has an interesting note that she came to Border mostly to get in touch with the Tryon body technology and its use on health. I mean, this could be like the ultimate disability aid, when you could just have a body that could do everything that someone can't if they're in a wheelchair or have non-functioning arms.
Yeah, because I always understood it from her point of view of obviously wanting to get the Trion body and feeling more at peace having it. But like, this confirms that her enlistment was also their interest to research Trion bodies just as much. Also, natural sagacity. I learnt a new word today.
I have to look up later what it actually means.
Of being sagacious. Definition is having or showing keen mental discernment and good judgment. They are wise or shrewd. Yeah,
Sure.
which matches up with what we've seen, I'd say.
Also, Nasu's stats are a bit lower than I expected. Like, 50 is nothing to scoff at. I just thought she's one of the best shooters in all of Border.
I mean, she has all the shooter triggers under the sun.
Plus, like they said, she can use composite bullets at a moment's notice. I do like that they liked their movies, which is probably since she is most likely locked into bed most of the time. And just a little note that exercising in tryout bodies is one of her likes. I guess it would be liberating to have a body that is not limited by your physical.
It's very endearing. And then we also have Yuko. She's sportsy. So I was confused where it said scouted. I thought it meant she was scouted by Shiki, but I think it was the other way around. So her and Nasu would have been the founding squad members, which I think the series has gone into already.
It's been very clear that those two have the closest relationship.
And then with Akane, since she likes collecting hats, it would have been cool to see her wear different ones in each scene, but also I understand how character design isn't his strong suit, and the default one is a good signifier.
Yeah, plus it might be a lot of work to relearn to draw the hat different each time.
Shiki has especially good mechanical operation. It's probably one of the most specialized stats we see on an operator. I'd never tied her joining the Nasu strategy meeting online to her shyness until now, because in the recent chapters, minor spoilers, we see a bit more of her difficulty around new people. There's also a thing in their off time of that just re-emphasizes that their border room is just there for immediate pre-battle prep, and they mainly strategize at Nasu's house. So then we have something on operators, which just I have to ask, why is this secret data? This feels like it should be accessible to anyone in Border. This is quite useful information.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's just one of those, you have to kind of separate the in-universe thing from the out-of-universe thing. Though, I do kind of like that they mentioned that them being commentators is actually part of training, because that helps them better parallel process when they have to commentate on many different things going on during the fight.
It's also cool to note that Yuma being able to see underwater in the Nasu-Suzunari match was due to the operator's help, and Murakami's disorientation there was purely lack of balance and not from poor visibility. There's also stuff like they see where chameleon units are, sniping points, etc. It's kind of a shame that they don't have a more active role, but it does also outline how much of a constant crucial element they are. Like, so much about how squad members find people on the map that don't have a bagworm is conveyed by them.
As well as them being able to like relay info on where bagworms might be and just plan routes because they have the bird eyes view.
So, we got Kakizaki Squad, a similar kind of camp to Katori Squad, bunch of all-rounders. Teruya being more skilled than Tomoe, I think makes a lot of sense given how well she performs in the match against Katori and Tamakoma, and obviously she's also 2 years older. I think from here, we might as well just do a lightning round.
Yeah, Matsuhiro Squad, who are they again?
Matsuhiro Squad, I don't think they've ever actually featured. They've just been mentioned. The one thing that interests me about them is that there's another Switchblock user in Matsukuni. It's kind of cool to see that they're such a specialized type of agent has its less experienced or accomplished users. Then we have Urashima, which there has been some stuff in the series. I think the thing that interests me the most about him is that the use of Silencer and Chameleon tell me that he's a more stealthy fighter than anything else.
What's the point of a silencer? Like, are Trion guns loud?
I believe in the anime they do give off noise when they go off. It's weird that he is the only member. This might not be for tactical reasons, though, given their ranking. But also, we know that Urashima isn't. So what is with the newer stuff? He's not terribly enthused about the away mission, so that is also a factor.
Though, I do wonder, why would they really allow someone to say, I'm a one-man team?
I guess it's literally they just need an operator.
There are no rules that you have to have at least 2 other members.
We've got a little close-up section. Not really much of note. It's just explaining how C-rank trainees have the 4,000 solo points requirement to ascend to main force of B rank. That is quite thoroughly covered in the series. And then, Ebina Squad, quite unremarkable on all counts besides Takatomi, which, got anything to say on her?
Other than the fact that she's fun and the best commentator. And also the first one who has a point value equally as low as Osamu.
I think Wensleydale called her their spirit animal or something with how eagerly she handles commentary, being similar to how they feel doing podcasts. We learned that she was the very founder of the match commentaries, having suggested it since she was a C rank, so this has been like an ongoing project she's pushed for.
Yeah, and we also get a reminder that usually with the match data you don't get the audio, so she just collects that herself.
I have to wonder if the only reason Border hasn't snatched her recordings is because she was so instrumental in setting it up.
Or maybe she just keeps those a little bit of a secret. Like, everyone knows she's not really allowed, but no one really talks about to the upper management.
Yeah, and this tells us that the commentary thing is relatively new even for Border, since she's still in middle school, so she could only have been an agent for so long. It's interesting that this translation seems to call non-operator commenters color commentators. I have to wonder if it's a misnomer. Maybe it's the idea that they are kind of meant to add some color to the lineup and provide different perspectives? I don't know.
Could be a translation thing, or could be what you said. That was my first thought. I also like to note that she actually does overreactions on purpose, just to be more entertaining.
I do not have much on Chano Squad. They're quite unremarkable all round.
Yeah, they had that one appearance, and I think they got destroyed right after.
Basically what they did was they mistook Yuma for an enemy neighbor during the invasion, and yeah, shot at him, but then things got cleared up. One thing I have to say is that Makoto and Nakane should compare their hats collection. I think that would be nice. God, now we're in the territory of the B rank where I go to find stuff for birthday tweets, because I'm the one who does those, and I find literally nothing on the wiki. No individual entry, nothing.
They are just, sir, not appearing in this film.
So yeah, Tokiwa Squad, literally nothing of note. Hayakawa Squad, Seiji being another grenade gunner launcher is kind of cool. Like, the only other notable example I can think of is Kitazoe. That's about it.
Yeah, except that Seiji doesn't use 2 of them, so what's the point? I guess this is just like, I need to have 20 of them, and some people don't get as fleshed out. I just need a name there.
After a certain point, you need background characters, and that's fine. You got, like, Yoshizato Squad. This is a hilarious entry to me, because it's clearly trying to straightforwardly convey the team's strengths and dynamics, but the only clear images we have of them in the manga is them jobbing hard to Yuma. My favourite is the uniform spotlight just being, like, a copy of a panel used earlier in the article of Hanao's head being cut off.
Also, they have the only agent so far who has lower point total than Osamu, at least for like B ranks and such.
Then we have Mamiya Squad, which I don't remember where we've seen them. I think maybe just wandering around.
These guys were also in the same battle where they took out Yoshizato Squad. These guys just had, we stay in this building, and then Yuma comes close, but Chika blew up the building, and then Yuma took them all down.
So the Houndstorm concept is vaguely novel. It's interesting that you note that Arafunay doesn't really do much to cover up from the weaknesses. These guys put that to shame. They don't even have the strategy of one of us can double as an attacker. This is clearly a team that focuses on one uniform type of combatant, but isn't that proficient at it.
Also, nice little note on uniform. Everyone wears defensive goggles during battles. Their naked faces are never revealed to the public. Like, it's some great secret.
Truly the Daft Punk of B-rank squads. Do you have anything else to say? Or shall we round off?
I mean, is there anything to say on these goobers?
I think we could get a good 20-minute discussion on Mamiya Squad, actually. No. Okay, let's do it. So, that is going to do it for the second Border Briefing Files episode of Duckface Diaries. You can listen to us on so many podcast hosting sites. Anchor, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Breaker, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Podbay, Player FM, Listen Notes, Castro, Google Podcasts. Patreon.com/Wensleydale Cheddar is where all the links are. Everything is in the pinned post. That is what helps them pay the bills, and if you want them to devote more time to making the show better, consider supporting them there. In return, you can get your name in the YouTube credits, or a World Trigger Duckface avatar. Plus, you can help them reach more ambitious goals, like reviving World Trigger Abridged, in which Grail and I might have more funny bit parts, of which my only one has been lost to the ether thus far. Remember that, much like the neighbourhood, the YouTube algorithm is a dark abyss of sorrows and woes, from which channels like these never resurface, and what helps us navigate it is liking, subscribing, and sharing the podcast with a friend. On the YouTube channel, and the same RSS feed, you get access to not only Duckface Diaries, but Manga Mosaic, a collection of podcasts and video essays on other manga titles, short and long alike. Also on the same channel, we have Podcast One Adventures, our new retrospective where we cover the Pokemon special manga, arc by arc, along with the host of the Pink Isle pod, Henry Kaufman. Grail, where can people find you?
Also just on Twitter on @NuclearAndroid.
Okay, great. And Hovin, plug our sister show. Oh wait, that's me! Check out HOVIN'S Hideaway, a miscellaneous podcast, mainly discussing manga, and for the episode I'm going to shill this month, give a look to our talk about shonen battle movies, featuring Caster UK. It's not had much of a performance at the moment, but I think it's one of the more fun discussions we've had. We talk about what make or breaks the formula of a battle movie, how do you keep it from being stale, and listeners, tell us right here, what would you pitch as an idea for a World Trigger movie? Give us a comment or a message to let us know. Once again, you can find all links in the description or the pinch post at patreon.com/WensleydaleCheddar. Send us emails, questions, comments, and suggestions at wensleydale012@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter at Duckface Diaries, or individual Twitters at WensleyCheddar and at Hoven with an H. A sincere thank you to Milo Jack Stillitz, who composed our ending theme, an orchestral rendition of Giri Giri, the first opening sequence for World Trigger. You can find his work at soundcloud.com/Milo-Jack-Stillitz. Hopefully, we'll see you all next month. So once again, this was the second Border Briefing File episode of Duckface Diaries, and always, it's time to bugger off!